So I'm sitting here after recording the last faith food video, and I realised that sitting here with the camera on the altar talking to you guys about my spirituality and about my pantheism and about the divinity of our earthly experience and our cosmic experience, I realised that this is spiritual practice for me. It's become a part of my spiritual practice, and I think I need to not denigrate it. I think I need to not think of it as this sort of extra thing that I do talking about my spiritual practice, and that I need to have all of this extensive stuff that I'm doing apart from this, so that I have stuff to talk to you guys about. Because I feel I'm sitting here now, and it's evening time, the sun is going to be setting soon, and the sun is shining in to the living room. It's been shining in all afternoon, and the light is just beautiful, and I feel just as centered and calm and focused and reverent as I would if I had just spent 20 minutes in meditation. And that's a beautiful thing. And the whole reason that I started making these videos in the first place was so that I would have a place and a time and people to whom I could share this kind of stuff. Because even though I'm in a school of divinity now, there aren't as many like-minded people around as I might have thought, and even the few people who are like-minded, it's actually surprisingly difficult to find the space and the time to talk to them about this stuff. I've had a couple of conversations with three people, let's say three people, who have pretty close beliefs to me. Now, they don't have a pagan practice. One of them does engage in some spiritual practice, I know. She's interested in yogic practices and so on. She has a yoga practice, etc. The other two, to my best knowledge, don't engage in anything that looks overtly spiritual or religious, you know, not any actual symbolic practices or gestures. But I'm going off topic now. But what I wanted just to say about that was that, yeah, I would have thought that once I found other people in the real world who shared similar views to me, that we would naturally fall into these really wonderful, reverential conversations about the divine. But I think it's always been difficult for me to bring this stuff up in person, and it's always been something that has saddened me in my romantic relationships, for example, that I haven't done it as much as I would have liked. Maybe a little bit more in my more recent relationship than in my last, but not as much as I would have expected or hoped for. And part of that might be the people in question, and like maybe not quite enough compatibility when it comes to this stuff, that they were never going to be people with whom I would have that kind of rapport. But predominantly, to be honest, it's really just because I'm bad at this in person. I'm bad at bringing this stuff up, and I'm not sure why. I want to change that this year, but the important thing really here to say is that it's a blessing to me that I have found a way to be comfortable doing this through videos and talking to you guys and blogging whenever I blog once a year. And I think it might be because it is such a private, it's always been a very, very private thing for me. It's not been something that I've talked to people very much about. I could probably count on one hand the amount of people with whom I've had serious, in-depth conversations with, you know, serious, in-depth, extensive conversations with a real proper back and forth about our views on divinity and the nature of cosmos, etc., like in person. And yet I have amazing, insightful comments from you guys on here every day. And I think, yeah, because it is such a private, personal thing for me, it's actually easier to sit in a room on my own and record this video, and it still feels like part of that private practice, even though I'm going to share it later. It's sort of somehow easier to do it now get it out now and then share it later rather than kind of bring it up. Because I guess then it means that you guys can approach it in your own time too, when you feel like it, when you're in that right headspace, and take your own time to respond, rather than it being something that you kind of have to impose upon each other. You know, you're not going to be necessarily sitting in the pub and then out of nowhere somebody goes, you know, I was just blown away by how connected I felt to nature and to this kind of amazing cosmic roller coaster that we're on today. And the other person goes, yeah, you know, I was just looking at the trees and thinking about how we're all one. And it's rare, like it's really rare for those conversations to pop up, especially in my friend group. And the kind of people around in my college who actually taught, or not my college, my school, who might actually have those kind of conversations about their faith or their beliefs and their practices, they're all Christians, so I have little to nothing in common with them, and I find them just as difficult to talk to about this kind of stuff because they all have it all in common and I don't, and it's just a bit of a strange, never feels quite comfortable, not because of any judgment on their part or on mine, but just because they're used to everyone having common ground, and I'm like sort of the weird anomaly that nobody really knows what it is that I believe or do, because I don't talk openly about that either. Well, I mean, they all know probably that or a lot of them know that I'm a pantheist and or a pagan, but I don't think they don't really know what it means because we don't talk about it. Whereas when you say you're a Christian, you automatically know, you both know what that means, at least to an extent. To some extent, you know you've got some shit in common. So, I mean, in a way it makes it even more of a joy then when I do bump into the people, when I discover the people who do actually share very similar views to me, who say, oh yeah, you know, I'm a pantheist too, or that they can relate to that, or that they're a panentheist, or even just using similar kind of words and ways of describing their relationship to the divine, or there's even some agnostics that would have very similar feelings that I have about the world. Yeah, that's pretty much all I turned the camera on to say, was just this for me is a spiritual practice, sitting here and talking to you. And I'm really, really grateful for it. I'm really, really glad that I sat down one day and decided to record my first video. I'm really glad before that I started doing my first blog post on my spirituality. And, you know, even that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't been blogging just about life in general and, you know, blogging my writing and stuff before that. And that also was a decision for me to sit down and write my first ever blog post. I can still remember that. And yeah, it's a unique kind of gift, this kind of sharing online. And it means the world to me.